If you are going to Disney World in the future and you are going to apply for the DAS Pass, you may also be considering buying Genie Plus. So today I am going to break down for you exactly what Genie Plus and DAS Pass is, how they can be used together, the pros and cons of this, and also my own personal experience of using DAS and Genie Plus in the same trip. My name is Sophie from Most Magical Guides, and I make videos all about planning trips to Disney World and Disneyland Paris, packed full of helpful tips and tricks. And I also vlog my own trips, which are usually solo or adult trips. So if you do like that type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So first up, let's explain what DAS is. DAS stands for Disability Access Service, and this is something Disney World has for people who have trouble being in queues. Now the great thing is Disney World are very good at accessibility for wheelchairs and mobility scooters. They've made sure that all of the queues are able to accommodate these. So if you do use a wheelchair or a mobility scooter, you will absolutely have no problems being in the queues. If you have any other medical conditions that could prevent you from being in queues, standing for long periods of time, things like that, then you can apply for what is called the DAS Pass. To apply for the DAS Pass, you can either do it up to 30 days ahead of your trip via the US Disney World website, and you will just have a quick video call with a cast member where they will ask you some of the ways that it is difficult for you to stand in the queue. They won't ask for any actual medical information, they won't ask for a diagnosis or ask you to provide a letter or anything like that because of US laws, but they will just ask you what is difficult about being in a queue, a few questions like that to assess whether DAS is right for you. You can also apply for the DAS Pass when you're in the parks themselves. If you go to guest services in any of the parks and ask to apply for the DAS Pass, they will do the same process of asking you a few questions to see if it's useful for you and then go from there. If you do apply for the DAS Pass ahead of your trip and you are approved, then you can actually book in 2 rides a day ahead of your trip with the DAS Pass. So that's nice to know that you do already have 2 ride reservations each day before your trip. Genie Plus is a paid-for service that you can purchase via the My Disney Experience app that helps you join the quicker Lightning Lane queue for up to 40 rides across the 4 Disney World parks. The price for Genie Plus now fluctuates depending on how busy the parks are, and I've actually seen it go as high as $35 per day. You can purchase Genie Plus from midnight of the day of your visit, and then at 7 AM you can actually book in your first ride reservation. You can only have 1 ride reservation at a time, but you can stack them, and this is such a top tip to help you maximise your use of Genie Plus. This bit is a bit confusing, so I'm going to try and break it down and hopefully it's understandable. But basically, at 7 AM you could do your first reservation. If you were to book a reservation for 1 PM for the Tower of Terror, once you enter the parks, say Hollywood Studios opens at 9 AM that day, 2 hours later you can then book a second reservation. Genie Plus has this little loophole where you are actually able to book further reservations 2 hours after you've booked your first one if your reservation time hasn't come up yet. So this is how you're going to stack your reservations. The one caveat is in the mornings you have to wait until the parks open. So say you did your reservation at 7 AM. Because the parks don't open till say 9 AM, you'd have to wait till 11 AM to do your next reservation. Then every 2 hours afterwards you can do reservations throughout the day. You've only just got to wait until the park opens before this process can begin. I hope that made sense, it was very confusing. So something I get asked a lot is, can you actually use the DAS Pass and Genie Plus together? And you totally can. And I would actually say it's such a brilliant thing to do. When I visited Disney World in 2022, it was the first time that I actually applied for the DAS Pass. It was also the first visit where you could actually buy Genie Plus. And when I booked my trip, they were actually doing a deal that for UK tickets, you could add Genie Plus onto the entire length of your stay for £98 or $6.99 a day, which is what I did. Using them both at the same time was such a big benefit for me because it really cut down the queue wait times. Genie Plus is fantastic for this. You definitely do notice a big difference between standing in the usual standby queues and using the lightning lanes with Genie Plus. I have a foot condition called plantar fasciitis, which can be aggravated by lots of activity, but the real pain kicks in when you are on the spot. So queues can be very, very difficult if it is for a long period of time. Using Genie Plus was fantastic for me because it did cut down weights significantly. Once I'd had the plantar fasciitis, at the beginning I actually couldn't walk. The first week that it proper kicked in, couldn't walk. Since then I was having physiotherapy, shockwave therapy, I had laser treatment, I've been doing activities, exercises, stretches, I've got specialist shoes, specialist insoles, so I was doing everything I could to prepare my foot for all the walking in Walt Disney World. And then unfortunately for me, 3 weeks ahead of my trip, I had a big relapse where I couldn't really walk again. This is why I then decided to apply for the DAS Pass, just to see if it's something I would be able to use. I had a really, really fantastic cast member who was so friendly, so accommodating, so understanding, and I did get approved for the DAS Pass. Because I already had Genie Plus as well, my plan was to primarily use Genie Plus, and for any rides where the queues were significantly long and I couldn't use Genie Plus for them, to use the DAS Pass in that circumstance. Using them both together like this was so fantastic. Genie Plus made sure that I didn't queue longer than 15 minutes for any ride. Often it was much shorter than that. And for the big rides where I couldn't get Genie Plus reservations for, I was able to use the DAS Pass, and I was able to then sit down and rest whilst waiting to go on these rides instead of standing up. Well, I wouldn't be able to stand up. I wouldn't have been able to stand up. I would have just had to have missed out on the rides. So I'm really, really thankful that Disney World do have the DAS Pass in place. It just basically means you get a virtual place in the queue and you can do whatever is more comfortable for you in that time. And it was lovely to be able to sit down and rest and just know I'm going to be able to go on this ride and not have to injure myself or be in significant pain to do so. So basically, yes, you can use Genie Plus and DAS together, and it is actually a fantastic combination. I'm going to quickly go over how you physically use them both at the same time, because I had never used Genie Plus or the DAS Pass system before going to Walt Disney World, so I didn't really know what I was stepping into. So I'm going to break it down a bit here, so hopefully it's simple if you do use both of them yourself. So as I mentioned earlier, if you do purchase Genie Plus, you can book your first reservation at 7 AM, and that is something I would absolutely do. If you have applied for your DAS Pass online and been approved, you've also got those 2 reservations that you would have already booked in. So you know each day of your trip, you've got at least 2 rides pre-booked, which is fantastic. So something to note about the DAS Pass is you can book them via the My Disney Experience app, which is fantastic, but you can't do that until you're inside the parks. In fact, if you open up the app outside of the parks, you won't even see the little DAS logo on the app. It only appears once you are in the parks. So once you have arrived into the park, you can make your first DAS Pass reservation of the day. With DAS and Genie Plus, once you have scanned into your reservation, you can then book another one. So whilst you're waiting in the queue, you could book your next DAS and Genie Plus reservations if you would like. And as I said earlier, with Genie Plus, you can also use that 2-hour hack, which is fantastic to help you stack your reservations. And basically, it is that simple. With the DAS Pass, you book your reservation. Once you've been on that ride, you can book your next one via the app. With Genie Plus, it's the same thing. Once you've scanned in, you can book another reservation. And once you've booked that reservation, if it's longer than 2 hours ahead, you can book another reservation to stack it 2 hours after you've booked that original one. I don't know how to say that without it sounding really confusing. I found it super, super easy and convenient to be able to book via the app. With the old system, you would have to go to the ride itself and they would give you a return time, but just having the ability to use it on the app was so much more convenient, and I just loved the speed and ease of it. So now I'm going to go through the pros of using Genie Plus and DAS together. If being in queues is difficult for you, then using both of these in conjunction is going to help you maximise your trip to its full potential, because you're just going to cut down those queue wait times so much. And then with the DAS Pass, you can just be waiting and be more comfortable whilst you're waiting because you have that virtual place in the queue. The DAS Pass is fantastic, and it is so, so helpful for anyone with any disabilities or conditions that mean they can't be in the queue. You can absolutely use DAS on its own. You do not need to purchase Genie Plus if you do not want. The only difference would be is that with the DAS Pass, you can only have one reservation at a time. So you would book your return time, wait, go on it, and then book your next one. You wouldn't be able to stack them like you can with Genie Plus. I personally loved the combination because I just got so much more done. I would say that Magic Kingdom is a fantastic park to get Genie Plus in. This park has a huge amount of rides, and because of that you can really get the most out of Genie Plus. You're getting your bang for your buck in this park. Hollywood Studios is the smallest park in Disney World, therefore it has less rides, which of course then means the queue wait times are longer. Genie Plus is a fantastic way to get on as many rides as you can in Hollywood Studios, so I would absolutely recommend it for that park too. Something that I really enjoyed about the DAS Pass system is it felt like a fair system. As I say, you are basically getting a virtual place in the queue. This is not a place where you can skip to the front of the queue. You're not getting an advantage over anyone else. If anything, you actually do wait a little bit longer, because say you were waiting for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and it was an hour-long wait, you would have an hour's return time, and then you join the Lightning Lane queue. This sometimes is maybe 5 minutes, but it could be maybe 15 minutes if it's a very busy day, so you would still be queuing a little bit, but it's much more manageable, much easier. So I like that it is a fair system. It's no real use in people trying to cheat the system, because I say you will actually wait a bit longer. It's not actually that handy for trying to jump to the front of the queue, because you don't get that. I also really love that the DAS Pass is so accommodating for such a wide variety of different conditions and disabilities, and it means that people can go and live out their best life in Disney. You are not having to miss out on anything or put yourself in discomfort in long queues, and it just means that everyone gets to have a fantastic Disney World experience. One of the other big pros, as I say, is that both of these can be booked in the My Disney Experience app. This is just so convenient. You can do it from absolutely anywhere. With the DAS Pass, of course, you have to be in the parks, but you don't have to be anywhere near the ride to book. You can do it wherever it's convenient for you, and just being able to do it with your phone that's in your pocket on you all the time was so handy. Something else that I really liked about DAS, which was a surprise, is you could actually use it during events such as Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. I went to this event during my trip because I was there in September, so I was all ready for Halloween, even though it's a month away, but you know, it starts in August in Florida, so it's fine. Because it was a special event, I didn't realise you would be able to use the DAS Pass. I thought with special events it would just be something that you would just have to queue. At Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, some queues can get very long, so I was a bit worried, but I was going into it knowing that. To my surprise, when I was there, a few hours into the party, the DAS symbol did pop up on the app, so you could start booking DAS Pass reservations. Now, I have to say, these special events, such as Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party or the after hours parties, are fantastic if you want shorter queues. I queued for less than 10 minutes for almost every single ride in Magic Kingdom during this party, most of them being walk-ons. So if you are looking to visit and you want to avoid big crowds or lots of queuing, going to one of these special events is perfect. There were only a handful of rides, maybe 3 or 4, which still had very long queue wait times, and for this I was able to use DAS, which was fantastic. So I could have a little break, sit down, and then go on these rides, and it was just the perfect way to experience the night, because you still got to rest and not be totally in agony and worn out, but still get to do all the rides you wanted to go on. So let's talk about the cons of using Genie Plus and DAS. One of the cons I found was that the Lightning Lane is the lane that people who have bought Genie Plus and DAS both use. So because of this, if you are visiting during a very busy period and lots of people have bought Genie Plus, it does mean those Lightning Lane queues do get long. Now obviously they are still significantly shorter than the standby queues, but they could go 20 to 30 minutes, and if standing in a queue for a long period of time is difficult for you, this obviously is not ideal. The park that I found this happening the most in was Hollywood Studios. As I said before, Hollywood Studios is the smallest park with the least amount of rides, so there are far fewer places for people to spread out over, therefore the queues get very long. Because of this, a lot of people end up buying Genie Plus for this park. Now I still think that is absolutely worth it, because again, you're going to be queuing far less time than in the standby queues, but it does mean the Lightning Lanes can get a lot longer than you anticipate, or a lot longer than the other parks. For example, when I was there in September, all of the other parks, my Genie Plus reservations were either a few minutes or maybe 10 minutes maximum, whereas in Hollywood Studios I was finding regularly standing in the Lightning Lane you would still be queuing 20 minutes. Obviously one of the biggest disadvantages now to Genie Plus is that the price has increased significantly. It's gone from a flat rate of $15 a day to now a variable rate depending on the business of the parks, and up to $35 per person per day. Across the length of your trip, this could become very, very pricey. Something I would say though is you don't have to purchase it every single day. If you're visiting for 2 weeks, which is the average for people visiting from the UK, what you might want to do is the first couple of days just visit the parks and get a sense of how busy they are and how much you are able to fit in. If the DAS pass is covering all of your needs, you may not want to use Genie Plus. But if you are finding that some of the queues are very long and you would like to be able to go on a few more rides and queue less, you might want to purchase Genie Plus for a couple of days of your trip. As I said in the pros section, Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios definitely benefit the most from Genie Plus. I would say Epcot and Animal Kingdom don't have so many rides, so they don't really fulfill the cost that you're paying out for Genie Plus. I would probably skip over those parks if I was going to buy Genie Plus again, unless it was like exceptionally busy. But most of the time you won't need it. The ride wait times aren't unbelievably bad in those two parks. And if you're using the DAS pass, you should be absolutely fine to be able to use that and still be able to do everything you want. So all in all, I would say I had a fantastic experience using DAS and Genie Plus together. I think my trip would have been entirely different if I didn't have these two things. I'm so glad I was able to buy Genie Plus and add it to the length of my trip. I think for future trips I wouldn't use it every single day and possibly not in every single park, but I would definitely be setting budget aside to use Genie Plus because I found it so helpful. The fact that it cut down my ride wait time so much just meant that I had more time to rest my foot. It was much easier on me. I also added breaks into my day. I went back to the hotel in the afternoon. I would have nice lunches that were long. So I was doing lots of things to try and help my foot in general, but Genie Plus definitely helped massively make me have a more comfortable and enjoyable trip. And I was so thankful to be able to use DAS for the very first time. I honestly believe if I hadn't been able to use it, I would have had an entirely different experience. I think I would have had to have missed out on a lot, just like I do at Disneyland Paris. But it is incredible the lengths that Disney World go to help everyone have an amazing time. I hope this little guide to using Genie Plus and DAS together has been helpful for you. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. If you would like to see some more videos on how to maximize your time at Disney World and learn lots of tips and tricks, then I'll put a playlist at the end of this video full of that information for you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.